Welcome to the HBTVS podcast. I'm your host, William, and joined today will be Sean.
Trick or treat.
And this episode is coming out, depending on the timing of it, September 30th, like Monday night, but it's actually coming out for the Tuesday, October 1st episode. So the first official episode of October. I just can't talk. The first October episode. And we'll be discussing something that has a little bit of fanfare around it, more from horror fans than the general public at large.
Well, forget the general public at large.
Yeah,
they're not listening to this.
Creepshow, the Shudder series that is the adaptation. I don't know. It's not remaking the stories from the original movies.
It's just a Creepshow TV show.
It's just a Creepshow TV show that is doing different stories. Some original. The first one is based on a Stephen King short. So, it's just adapting new things. It's kind of in that same vein, kind of going for a Tales from the Crypt type feel for like the original series. So the series is on Shudder, which you can... Exclusively on Shudder. You can... currently, I think that if you can sign up, you can get a 7-day trial, 1-week trial to do it. Otherwise, it's like $5.99 a month if you do it month to month.
Or you can do a year for like
$60 or something.
No, it's I don't know. I got it for like $43.
It was $4.99 a month if you do the annual price. So it works out to like $60 or something.
Sometimes you can get sales and there's deals and get on there and look for codes and stuff. But
so basically
it's so cheap, I think, for what you get. And they're apparently doing pretty good because they're doing all kinds of original stuff now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and acquiring like different horror things. So it's on Shudder. So currently there's only the first episode that's aired. So we're talking about that. I
think there's going to be a Joe Bob Halloween thing too. The way they've been hinting about something special for Halloween, like Shudder has, and then Joe Bob said something. I think they're going to do it. I mean, obviously that seems like an obvious thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and two, like, before we get into that, we can just briefly touch, because I've watched a number of different other things on TV that are horror recently. So I've been watching American Horror Story 1984, which might be of interest to people.
How is it?
So this is the one that is supposed to be set up kind of like a Friday the 13th film, where there's a summer camp where a massacre occurred like 10 years prior, and then they go to reopen it, and there's camp counselors, and there's a killer. And then there's a real-life serial killer that's involved somehow.
Like a real one?
Yeah, like the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who appeared as a ghost in one of the prior seasons of American Horror Story. Because in Hotel, they had like a serial killer dinner or something where he was in there. So there's only been 2 episodes that I've watched so far because I've watched the ones that come out. And it's very tongue-in-cheek and campy currently. It's not quite as campy as going to like the Wet Hot American Summer first day of camp, like those Netflix series or the movie, but it's not too far off because it's got different people in it. There's another character it has. I don't know if it's a spoiler to tell you like just a character's name after 2 episodes, but John Holmes is in it because he's got a huge penis apparently. And there's just like really campy, weird jokes.
Is it funny though? Do they land the jokes?
I mean, some of it's just so ridiculous, it's enjoyable.
So yeah,
and I'm enjoying it. And I think there will be some twist probably because there's no way that you can sustain 10 episodes of very straightforward knockoff Friday the 13th. There's no way you can maintain that for that long and it stay entertaining. So there's got to be something else going on. There's already people kind of contemplating like what the twist is. And some of the stuff, I agree with. Like, it's campy fun. It delivers kind of what the premise would. The cast, it doesn't have like some of the, A-tier cast that was in past seasons, like Evan Peters and Sarah Paulson, who are doing all the feature film work now.
Well, now Academy Award winner, Lady Gaga, right?
Oh,
Did she win an Academy Award, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And honestly, when I saw her in that first episode, I was like,
Yeah,
her performance isn't that great. And
in Hotel, it did seem like they kind of cut her lines up to be shorter takes, with not a lot of dialogue and to go.
Maybe the first go round too could have been,
you're forgetting
not great directing. You know what I mean? She maybe not had time like Bradley Cooper apparently.
You're not giving credit to her role in Sin City 2, A Dame to Kill For.
Was she in that? I didn't see
like
that.
some brief role. It was like a waitress or something in a diner, I think. But Yeah, but so far, like, it's been enjoyable. It's been, like, kitschy, and I'm having fun with it. Because even though they're killing people, it's not as mean. So, like, the one series Slashers on Netflix, there's 3 seasons of it. I had done a video about season 1. Season 2, I didn't do a video. I did watch. I didn't do a video on it because it just felt so mean-spirited. And there's, like,
I mean, that's a common term, but, like, so what does it turn off? Like, what feels mean-spirited about it? Like, what specifically do you mean when you say mean-spirited?
So there's, first off, there's character drama I don't care a ton about in Slasher season 2. But then when I'm talking about mean-spirited is, so there's people that killed somebody on accident and then they go to have a retreat and then somebody comes after them. The basic setup for season 2. But there's a guy that was involved in it. He gets kidnapped by some guy and he gets continually anally raped. And then he gets burned alive and then he gets killed after that. So it's like all this stuff where it's like, this is torture. Like, this is not fun. If you're going to, a lot of times with horror stuff, if you're going really over the top with the kills, like American Horror Story, this newest season, if they're fun, it doesn't matter how gory or explosive or whatever it is, it can still be fun because it's in the service of an enjoyable story. But if it's played very deadly serious and straightforward, and it's just really over the top for the sake of being over the top, and it's all digital effects for the most part, because I think there was somebody gets like a chainsaw or something to the gut. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's very meant to be over the top gore, but it's all digital, and it was just very mean-spirited. And I watched a little bit of season 3, and it felt like more of the same and just trying to be edgy to be edgy. So I didn't really even go that much further with it because it's like, I have limited time now because, like, I'm busy with work, busy with doing other things. I don't have time at this point to really devote 10 hours to a show I'm not going to get enjoyment out of. Because I don't really care about seeing someone get digital guts splued all over the place from a chainsaw being dragged across their stomach. I just don't. If that's the payoff for 50 minutes of unenjoyable television, I'm not going to spend the time. So it's one of those things where, like, that show, but American Horror Stories 1984 so far seems to be fun. Now, the show has had a track record of starting out in an interesting way and then really just going off the rails, so there's still the possibility. But to watch, around the Halloween season, October so far, it's been fine. Now, does it maintain? Who knows? I don't know if I mentioned, I watched Mindhunter season 2. Now, I actually listened to the audiobook of Mindhunter, and then another audiobook that that John Douglas, the FBI agent that wrote Mindhunter and that was kind of based on, he wrote another book. It's called Across the Table that was actually narrated by Jonathan Groff, the actor that played him or played the character kind of loosely based on him in Mindhunter. So that was kind of like an interesting dichotomy. Cool. Or make sure it's got his name right. Jonathan Groff. So I enjoyed that. Because also, like, at some point we'd be trying to work on a feature film idea, and I was wanting to get a little bit more detail on serial killers or people to do that stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll just listen to these. Yeah. And it's been pretty good wealth of knowledge. And then, like the John Douglas, the FBI agent that wrote Mindhunter and these other things, and it's kind of based on, he is a little bit, there's a little bit of arrogance in the books and, bragging about, I mean, here's the thing though, did catch serial killers, did develop a lot of the profiling techniques. So that's all fine, but like in the reviews of it, people like, enjoyable anecdotes about the serial killer, or not enjoyable, but informative anecdotes about the psychology of serial killers. You do hear about how awesome he is 20 times though. But it was really interesting listening to the audiobook where it's narrated by the actor that plays the character that I kind of associate with him in the show Mindhunter. So that's kind of like an interesting thing that more people should probably do.
It just feels like a audiobook site, a supplement to the show in some weird way.
And two, this isn't a narrative book where they're breaking back and forth between characters. It's from the perspective of this, one person. So having the same narrator throughout makes sense. Yeah. Like with Game of Thrones, it's one voice actor narrating the entire thing, or like Harry Potter's. If you were to get all those all the actual actors from that would cost a ton of money. And like this book, Across the Table, it's like 10-hour audiobook. It's not just 2 hours. So I've been listening to both of those, Mindhunter and Across the Table. I've enjoyed both of those, not in a perverse sense, just informative and giving information I'm using as I'm trying to write a character to make it more true to how people in real life would be. And then apparently too, there's a lot of FBI agents who think that different characters in the Silence of the Lambs and Red Dragon novels are based on them. Because he had said that Jack Crawford might have been based on him, but some other agents like, no, it wasn't him, it was me. So it's always back and forth with people trying to take the credit for being the inspiration. But yeah, I did those. Watched Mindhunter. Been watching The Terror Season 1, which is on Hulu.
Yeah, I started that and it looked really cool, and I just got busy. So
yeah, 3 or 4 episodes in, enjoying it because it definitely goes in some directions. Like there was stuff that happened I didn't expect to happen. So it is, a fictionalized account of a real world thing. There were some ships that went missing in the 1800s. This is about a fictionalized account of what happened. So there's a number of things that take that approach. You take a real life mystery and then just kind of fill in the gaps with a fictionalized story. And the acting is all good. It has a lot of people in it that have appeared in like Game of Thrones and other stuff. So it's really good.
Season 2 is out now also, right?
Season 2 is set in Japan and it's like a completely different story. Yeah. So I'm interested to catch up and watch that. So that's something I recommend.
Get back to that,
and like I said, it's on Hulu. So it's one of those shows where you can knock it out in a shorter period of time. I'm trying to think what else I watched of anything. I think that was kind of it. So like Mindhunter Season 2 I loved. Not love. I enjoyed it a lot. I think they do kind of go a little bit too much into the melodrama of some of the characters' lives as opposed to giving you the stuff that's more entertaining, which is the actual methodical procedural elements in the interviews and stuff with the killers. But the filmmaking is top notch, and then it dives into a lot of interesting story elements and very riveting. So I went through it pretty
like
quickly.
season 1.
Barry, I watched Barry season 1 and 2. Love that. So if you like dark comedies and dark humor, because like Vice Principals and Barry I both finished.
You haven't watched Gemstones yet, have you?
I need to start on that soon.
Catch up with that, but
yeah. So Barry I love. It has like one episode that has like a lot of one takes that are amazing, and there were moments I laughed out loud just watching it, and there was even moments where a character in an episode's like, what? And then I'm myself having that same reaction. Yeah. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you have HBO. Or just sign up for a month, watch season 1 and 2 of that.
I mean, Alec Berg, him and Bill Hader. Like Alec Berg, he's a great talent. You know what I mean?
It has Stephen Root, who's always amazing.
Yeah.
Bill Hader just won not an Oscar, an Emmy for Barry for acting. So yeah, check that show out. That it's not horror, but it's dark comedy. It's about a hitman that goes after a target who's an actor. Then he decides, hey, I want to be an actor too, and a lot of hilarity ensues. And it's one of those shows where, because like I'm trying to think like Dexter, where you have a main character that kind of does bad things, but then you kind of when you watch it, you yourself feel dirty because the character did stuff that the other characters don't. And you're like, they're hiding this from people. So there's all these elements like that, but this is a lighter show with comedy and humor in it. So even though there's like dark stuff, it's balanced by characters like NoHo Hank and stuff who are they're funny. Yeah. So it's definitely a recommend for me.
He's going to be in some new movie.
Oh.
And I was like, they cast him in it, and I was like, oh yeah. I can't remember what it was though. You continue. I'm going to look that up though. But yeah, Barry is very good. HBO, I think they just kill it on their stuff.
Yeah,
on their
and
TV shows.
And it's funny because a lot of stuff that Barry and these different shows have in them that nobody really gets upset and writes think pieces or protest against. Those same elements appear in something like the Joker film and everybody loses their mind, just to, throw back to that line from Dark Knight or whatever. But it's just funny because I think when you have a show that, it's a multi-season thing and it shows the fallout and the repercussions and it shows the characterizations, it's a little bit easier for people to kind of take it in. Because I remember like at first with Vice Principals, there were people who were kind of upset like, is this just going to be glorifying bad behavior and blah, blah, blah. But then as the show went on, it nobody was really that upset by the end of it.
Yeah.
I mean, because I do think people kind of get upset about stuff now. It's like, this doesn't fit the view or mold of what I want to watch, so I hate it. And it's on every side. People are like, this isn't what I want, so it shouldn't be around.
Well, the thing is, a comedy, sometimes they, it is the difference when somebody watches Taxi Driver and they're like, Travis Bickle's a hero, and him as a villain. With comedy, I think something like Vice Principals, the humor is embedded into it, so they are laughed at. They are the assholes of the show. Yeah. So it's easier to say like, no, we're laughing at these people because of their bad behavior, because they're terrible people and have terrible perspective. Because the whole time they're going back and they're justifying or whatever, and they're wrong.
Yeah.
Because we're meant to laugh at them. So I think because you're laughing at them, it's easy to say, hey, they're terrible people. Just like Observe and Report. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing. Like that movie, like, no, this guy is an idiot. Like he's not a quote unquote hero. And when you do something straight, when you like tackle, say, let's just say toxic masculinity. Joker, we don't know the perspective of Todd Phillips about. That's maybe not panning out like people thought possibly.
Yeah, who knows?
Perspective on the filmmaker, I don't know. But when you're, say, tackling that in a serious manner, it could very easily be taken as, this person is the quote-unquote hero, and you know what I mean? They're justified in their actions or whatever, where if it is a damnation of it. I think comedy, it's easier to highlight the differences there.
Yeah, but yeah, so all that stuff, like I said, so American Horror Story 1984, The Terror, Barry, all stuff I recommend watching. American Horror Story seems like
he's
it's
in
fun.
Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, great. I cannot wait to see him in that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was all the stuff I had recently watched. But
yeah, I've been busy, but I've watched Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. Yeah. Watched it in 4K. It looks very good on a 4K disc for a 50-plus-year-old TV special.
Yeah, so now we can get into discussing Creepshow, the 2019 reboot of the series. Like I said, it's not remaking. As far as I know, I don't think they remade any stories from the original films. The Raft is still probably one of the best ones. Best segments from an anthology I can remember. Because there's really good ones in the first one. But just the Raft concept and the ending and all that stuff.
I've never seen Creepshow 2.
Well, you gotta watch the Raft.
I know.
There's also two... because I was like mind blown. One of the guys from Mindhunter, so Tench, like the older detective, he was in Creepshow 2 as a character. I was like, oh, that was him. But yeah, so crazy that's the same person. It's also a large gap in time and all that stuff. But so Creepshow, the first episode is 2 stories: Gray Matter and Head in the House, and. Like I said, so the first episode's out. We don't have the entire series. I don't know if we'll probably come back and touch on the episodes later.
Yeah, if you watch any more, I'm going to try to keep watching them.
We're not going to devote entire episodes to the future episodes. Just thought, since it's coming back, it's beginning of October, it's probably something good to touch on. Going back to the original Creep. So you've seen Creepshow 1, but not 2. Mm-hmm. And they made 3 too.
And I heard 3 is god awful.
3 I haven't seen, but 2 I've seen, and 1 I've seen obviously because I actually remember seeing it as a kid when Corey showed me that when we were young. Because he has loved that movie since he was, under the age of 10. So Creepshow, the original movie, I like it a lot. I haven't rewatched it this year yet, but in terms of like the horror anthologies, it's top tier.
Yeah. And I think this is where anthologies should live now, on TV basically.
I think too, what happens with some of it is, so people have this loving nostalgia for Creepshow. Wasn't a huge moneymaker. I think it did well for everybody involved because it was written by Stephen King, directed by George Romero. So 2 huge names in horror at that time because, Stephen King, but George Romero, had The Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and then he had some of his other side projects like The Crazies and these other things. But so 2 people that were well known in the horror world tackling an anthology with all these varied stories. They had like a unique feel to it. And, had some pretty big names in it. It had Ted Danson. I think it was pre-Cheers, though. Leslie Nielsen.
Oh, no.
Or was it
Cheers? Was like 83, 84.
Because didn't Creepshow come out in 80?
Was it? I thought it was 80? Really? Is that
Creepshow was
maybe.
1982.
Okay. Maybe. I guess it was right before Cheers.
So it was 1982. It had Leslie Nielsen, Adrienne Barbeau, and then Ed Harris was in it. Ted Danson, of course you had Stephen King, a bunch of different people. So
Cheers was 82 to 93, so of course Cheers wasn't a big hit when it first started.
Yeah, so it was before Cheers made him a cultural icon, so kind of lucky timing there. Ed Harris was in it before he became like a big star. So the original movie, very high regard, one of those movies that, top tier anthology film, just a great movie to go check out. So that's the baseline. I'm assuming you're on the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There. Yeah, I love Creepshow.
So I have reverence for the original, but I don't think that the name is so
So
especially that you can't make anything new under that banner.
Especially if you're doing a TV show version.
Yeah.
You're not making like straight creep show movie. You know what I mean?
So
like
I had no objections to them making this TV show. I know some people did, but I was like, no, I like this idea. I mean, just if you're going to make it, TV's probably the place to put it. Because there hasn't been an anthology show like that in a while. There's been an anthology series where it's a one-season story arc that is beginning to end, and then a new story the next season, like American Horror Story.
There was another anthology show, but it was each episode was a different thing, and I can't remember what it was.
Like a major series?
It was pretty decently major. Let's see here, anthology horror show. But so, did you look up anything about? Because there's a Greg Nicotero interview too on there. I got the Fangoria, but I didn't read it because I just watched the episode last night. I was waiting, even though it's probably no spoilers. I was just waiting. But essentially, Greg Nicotero, he said he befriended George Romero at a young age. The first set he ever visited was Creepshow. The first time he was on set was Creepshow. And then so, obviously, Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, is working on this as well, too.
Yeah.
So, there's people there that are connected to it in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of like anthology, there may have been some anthology series. I'm trying to remember.
I feel like there was one specifically that was, I don't know. Masters of Horror was one.
But that was like 10 years ago.
But I feel like there was one that was recent that we kind of watched a little bit of, or at least maybe I watched an episode of two. I'll dig around. Maybe I'm wrong though.
I mean, because there's a lot of anthology series on social media and YouTube and stuff like that. Because there's like, The World of Death, which is like the series that Tony Wash from Scotchworthy Films does. That's on Bloody Disgusting's website that a couple of our shorts have been in. But that's just collecting whoever's short films and releasing an episode each month with no wraparound. It's just they're all together. You have things like that. Then there's a ton of anthology indie films, because you worked on Volumes of Blood horror stories. So there's the Volumes of Bloods films. There was 1031. There was
they're easy to put together.
Then there was like All Hallows Eve, which was one a few years back that then had the character of Art the Clown, which became the Terrifier film. So you've had these different anthologies come out, and there's other ones I'm forgetting right now. But yes, there's been a bunch of anthologies that come out. So I think the TV version is probably a little bit better avenue for it, because you're not saying, plop down and watch for 2 hours some anthology that, there's VHS that were the ones that kind of brought that back in vogue a little bit. But the series itself, so there's the 2 episodes where the first one is Gray Matter.
Black Mirror's kind of one.
Black Mirror is. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There was another horror specific one I was thinking that I watched at least an episode or 2 of, and I can't remember what it was, and I dropped out. I feel like it was on Hulu, but I may be wrong, though.
Oh, there was like Dimension 404 that was more like sci-fi, not really serious. But
Into the Dark?
That's the Hulu series where each month they release a separate film.
Okay.
But regardless, any recent horror anthology shows have either not really caught our attention or not really it's been a while, because you like the Masters of Horror. But like with Creepshow, so there was 2 episodes. The first episode, Gray Matter, has Tobin Bell, of course, who is Jigsaw from Saw, the Saw films. Giancarlo Esposito, who's been on Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, as Gus Fring. He's in a bunch of stuff over the years. He was in some Spike Lee movies and things like that. Adrienne Barbeau, of course, who was in, all these different movies. She was in the original Creepshow and all kinds of John Carpenter stuff and all kinds of classic movies. And then a kid actor that I thought was the kid that played Bill from It, but it wasn't. He very much had that look. And the first story is about a boy whose dad becomes an alcoholic. And it's kind of very like, this was one that was based on a Stephen King short. And it was very much metaphorical of the alcoholism turns you into a monster type deal. Because Stephen King has had that be a topic in a number of things. Like that was kind of inspiration for The Shining or part of it and things like that. So the first one had the story and then the setup, and so it's basically like in a little small town there's going to be a hurricane or something, so everybody's evacuated, but there's a little general store where Adrienne Barbeau works there, and then Tobin Bell's like the sheriff or a cop, and his buddy is Giancarlo Esposito, and they're just hanging out. Then the kid comes in because he needs a case of beer for his dad, which why would they give that to a kid? Because that's breaking laws. But
when was this short written though?
Yeah,
you know
I mean,
like,
there's probably. I mean, they're probably like family stores where if the police officer's there and condones it.
Yeah.
But then
you'd think a sheriff wouldn't be just hanging out though during a hurricane.
Yeah, small town, who knows? But so they're sitting there. The kid comes in, tells them that his dad's different and there's something wrong. So the cop and his buddy go take the beer to him. And you get the backstory from the kid as to what's going on, and it's obviously not. It's not just his dad being an alcoholic. There's other stuff going on. They go there. There's a monster effect,
and it's cross-cutting between him telling Adrian Barbeau, his dad's, the path he was on and what set him that way.
Yeah,
and then cross-cutting with them going into the house. So you're kind of getting filled in on the backstory while action is being moved forward.
And two, like. One thing I'll say is watching this show, it's obvious they don't have a ton of budget for this. This is not, the Masters of Horror, when it came out, they had a pretty decent budget for it. Because that was on, was it Showtime or Showtime? And Mick Garris was behind that. And they had all these different directors. You had John Carpenter direct one. You had different people direct them. Didn't Joe Dante direct one? And
maybe
Don Coscarelli or whatever.
Coscarelli did one, yeah.
So I know that you had Takeshi Mike did one. Yeah. So you had different directors make one, and that was over well. They had money in it because they had different casting things. This seems like because this first one's literally 2 locations. I mean, there's a little bit of exterior, just walking in front of a house or something, but it's mostly inside the store and inside a house. And it just feels low budget. And I wonder if that's going to come through even more in later episodes, how constrained they're going to feel on the budget. Because you have Greg Nicotero behind it, so there is good effects work. In this first episode, Gray Matter,
That's where they blew all the budget.
Yeah, there was good effects work. There was good practical effects work. It wasn't CG monstrosity. It was decent, good, big creature design that was interesting. And it's one of those things too where it wasn't going for maximum scares really. It's just going to show you the creature, because I think if you want to go for scares, you show it as little as possible, and then go for setting up these tense situations, as opposed to this felt more straightforward. I mean, they're shorter stories because the entire episode was an hour, or
45 minutes.
45 minutes. So it 20 minutes a piece. There's a little opening with the Creepshow.
The Creep.
Yeah, the Creep, essentially the Crypt Keeper comparable character that goes and finds the comics and reads them, and then it very much has the comic, the EC Comics inspired iconography, and then there's titles and things that show up on the screen that are reminiscent of comic books, and there's some animated transitions, which are a great way to show stuff without having to actually shoot it. Not that animation is cheap or easy, it's just you don't have to do all the casting and
cheaper.
Yeah, so I like that element of it. I don't really think it felt a whole lot like the original series.
The original felt
the original movie.
Yeah, the original movie, it had just this sense of humor under it all, I think. This almost like a dark,
the birthday cake.
Just dark humor under it all almost. And sometimes outright humor, Stephen King, the segment he's actually in.
Yeah, not there.
Yeah, so it did not feel Creepshow in that way. But I will say the thing I'm looking forward to is I hope it picks up for more seasons, because we are getting different directors for different segments. Who do we got? Tom Savini.
You had Tom Savini. You had
Rob Schraub.
Rob Schraub did one.
I'm excited to see his. Very excited to see his.
David Bruckner, John Harrison, Roxanne Benjamin, Greg Nicotero. So, Greg Nicotero has done some of The Walking Dead, done some other stuff. David Bruckner had done The Ritual recently and had done some other anthology segments. And
of course, K&B Effects, Greg Nicotero. That's why, he did the effects for Walking Dead and all that. So this feels more serious.
And Roxanne Benjamin had done a segment in Southbound and an XX. So, you've had people that have worked on these things before, or these types of projects. And
What I want to see is I want to see them keep going with these seasons. I hope it gets picked up for another because I want to see this show evolve into its own thing. That's what it can do, I think. You know what I mean? It already feels a little bit different, but they probably are trying to walk that line. But I really want to see them just turn this into something else, you know, their own thing, or really let the directors kind of go wild as far as the tone or whatever. I would like to see some that are like an outright comedy, almost like the Stephen King starring segment in the first one, and then others that can be more serious if it works very well.
Well, the thing that I would say...
they feel a little restrained. That first one just feels a little bit... It's not having as much fun as I get out of a Creepshow segment. That's what it is.
And two, so like, I mean, part of it's just like the realities of today. They're shooting it digital because that's what you have to do.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm saying something about the tone of it, not the look.
I'm just saying, like, you know, to me, like the look is part. Like a lot of stuff when it's moderate to low budget and it's shot. So there's a lot of stuff they'll shoot on good cameras, but they don't have the money to really amp up the production value. So it just looks really like flat and clean and digital.
But I mean just the direction of it. Even just the direction. Like
I mean the direction, it feels constrained. It feels like they're really constrained to like these set locations and these sets they probably have. And it's built around the effects they're going to show, or the thing that, like in this first one, Gray Matter, showing the effects that are going to happen with the creature is probably what they built their budget and episode around. And the other stuff is more of, let's just shoot him here in this building. As opposed to the first movie felt more organic, and even if it limited you to one location, it didn't feel like it was a specific constraint that they had to deal with, and it felt like that was just more organic to the story being told. And it's just, I felt like this new one was missing that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, a lot of this stuff added to that overall feeling, like the music, the look, the direction. And it's not really a knock on it, because I'm sure they had limited resources, especially compared, you know, to a lot of TV shows have a budget of like $2-3 million. You know, Game of Thrones had something like 10 on these recent seasons. This show is probably, you know, way under $1 million for the 2 episodes, or for the episode, because it feels like you get a couple, like in the first one, some good actors, and just have them like sit around talking in one place and then go in another place and get attacked. And it feels like that was probably shooting as many or as few days as possible with your talent that costs money. And I mean, part of it's just like, that's what it is. And I know some people voice concerns after seeing the trailer that it looked kind of low budget and cheap. And it's like, yeah, Shudder probably isn't rolling in the money the same extent as AMC, HBO, anything like that.
They are owned by AMC though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a subsidiary, but
they've got to make their own money to.
But at the same time, you know, if I forget how many episodes are in this season, but I
think 6 maybe.
The entire budget for the entire season is probably less than most movies that get made, just because they're probably going. Like, there could be some really cool effects, and having Greg Nicotero be involved probably helps, because he's one of the effects people that, you know, everybody goes to now, that works on a lot of big movies. And then, you know, like I said, worked on The Walking Dead for forever. But like, if they had a Walking Dead budget per episode, it'd be amazing to see what that looks like.
Is that show over with, Walking Dead?
No, it's still going on.
Okay. Is he still the EP on that?
I think so. Okay. I mean, they even have some movies they're making.
That's right.
Some Walking Dead movies that'll be in theaters and on AMC or something. But yeah, I mean, because like, so Breaking Bad, they made there's the El Camino, the Breaking Bad kind of sequel movie that's going to be on Netflix. This is not that budget level. This is not that production level. This is, you know, kind of a lower tier. Like I said, these segments would fit in with some of the horror anthologies we've seen at festivals. Mm-hmm. The difference is you don't get Tobin Bell and, you know, Adrian Barbeau in a movie that's showing at, or
that type of effect too, the monster effects and stuff.
Yeah, but, so like these, if you took these and just released them on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the budget and the actual look of it. I understand that, but I think for me, I wanted them to have a sense of playfulness to them. And so far, that first one didn't. It felt
not like more straightforward.
It was trying to be more straightforward, and the effects were good. And it was a fine story. It was totally fine, and it wasn't too long.
Yeah.
The second one, I think, was
better and more interesting story to me.
Yeah, it was. It was a very cool concept. So it's basically about a dollhouse with this little severed doll head.
Because the little girl has a dollhouse that has a little family in it with like a mom, a dad, a son, and a dog. And it's this really intricate, big dollhouse. And then she finds a severed, creepy-looking, decayed head in it. And then the head moves around and then causes stuff to happen to her dolls. So then she, you know, has her mom take her to the doll shop. and buy different dolls to try to solve the problem. Like, she gets like a police officer doll, and like she wanted to get a priest or a rabbi, but they had a Native American, so she got a Native American like shaman.
For these segments,
like small things. So just
I mean, honestly, that's all there is to that segment. You know what I mean? Like it is small spoilers, but that segment is very tame, I think, in what happens and what you're getting out of it. But I think the direction of that one, at least, doesn't maybe necessarily feel like the same playfulness as Creepshow, but I think it works, and it's like there was something interesting there, and I don't know, I really enjoyed a lot of that segment. I think the payoff is just like it just kind of ends. You know what I mean?
Well, because like I've seen some people complain that they don't think that these have really strong endings, because a lot of anthologies, you know, even when you make a short film, a lot of times, you know, because was it you or somebody sent the article about the tip of the iceberg, like writing shorts? A lot of times a short film or even a segment from the anthology is just showing you the tip of a story. So it's showing you just enough of the story that you can kind of in your head build the rest of this movie around it. And it's really interesting because, you know, you can give somebody just a little tidbit of something and make them wonder, well, what's the rest of this story? I'm intrigued to know more. So a good short film can do that, but sometimes short films try to tell a beginning to end story and just end abruptly. Because since you're not working in an actual film, you're not following a lot of the screenplay development, you know, requirements. You don't have a first, second, third act. I mean, some of them, you should usually have a beginning, a middle, and an end. But a lot of times the end is very abrupt and it's not very satisfying because you know, rising action, you know, build up, rising action, and then it just ends. Because a lot of times they don't have the money to show the conclusion of something.
Yeah.
So with that one, I would think like the first one didn't really have a very satisfying conclusion to it.
Except for the effects.
Like the effects were cool, but
again,
the actual...
it's just effects, you know?
There was very little emotional beat to it. And then the reveals that happened, I was like, oh.
Yeah,
okay.
you know, it's making the parallel of alcoholism. You know, it's just like, okay, this is here to make a point and then show an effect. And it does that, but it doesn't leave you with much.
And the second one, like, I think they could have made it a lot creepier. You know, because like in your head, you're like, what's the off-screen movie? Like, what's the implication here? What's the story behind this? And I think they could have maybe done a little bit more of that, but they you know, just kind of focused on the creepy elements in that story.
But I think that those specific moments, I think, were handled well. I like the direction of it, especially, you know, just being sitting around a dollhouse. It's a little unconventional. It's a horror film taking place in a dollhouse almost. You know what I mean? Like,
because
and it's like, you know, it's not these, the dolls aren't moving around, but the way they block it and change things, it's a little unsettling, you know, and I think that's effective. Like, I think that one worked out pretty well.
I mean, because you have a lot of it where it's just shooting, you know, I'm sure like on macro lenses or whatever in this dollhouse, which worked. I mean, honestly, the implication of what the story was going on behind the scenes, to me, was better than showing it.
Yes. I think that was written by the Bird Box. Comes from Bird Box writer John Mallerman and director John Harrison. So basically the Bird Box team did that one. I think they did a good job.
So I mean, like, I enjoyed that one. Like, out of the two, that's the one that...
Yeah, it's not it's not a totally home run, and if it wasn't like, if the talent of who's directing the rest of the episodes and the Creepshow names, I wouldn't be like, oh, I've got to keep watching the series.
Well, because if this didn't have the Creepshow name attached and there wasn't the wraparound, it's not only a wraparound.
And the talent, as far as like Tom Savini, you know.
If you didn't know who all was behind it, and you just saw these two back to back as part of a short film series on YouTube, I don't know that I would be all that, like, okay, I want to watch the next one. Because sometimes...
I would give them a subscribe. I would. Well, I probably would.
I subscribe to a lot of stuff, but then don't actually follow up. Because a lot of times, you know, with short films, like, it's a little bit different idea too. Because if these are just short films on the internet, it really does need to grab your attention pretty early on to make you want to continue watching it. As opposed to a TV show or a movie, you kind of go in knowing I'm devoting X amount of time. Once I start hitting play, I'm probably going to finish.
But that's what this is, you know.
So it's a TV show, so it does deserve a little bit more of your effort and time to watch. I would just say that, you know, sometimes too, when you have something like Creepshow, like, that was a confluence of events. It was a director at the time that matched up with the writer at the time that made something with an effects team, and they got the casting right. So there's all these things that work in your favor that's really hard to recreate. So this doesn't have that confluence of getting somebody right before they're a breakout star, or getting somebody like Leslie Nielsen to play a villain, which he didn't really do very often.
No, I think he did. I think he played straight roles before he went into this comedy.
I'm saying, like, most people's memory of our age of Leslie Nielsen is of Naked Gun and all the comedies. and it's not really of him being a villainous or a you know dramatic character.
He was a villain in Surf Ninjas.
Well, in Dracula Dead and Loving It, he was Dracula, which underrated movie. Since it's October, check out Dracula Dead and Loving It.
Is it? When it came out, I remember people saying it was horrible, and I just never, because it's Mel Brooks' film, right?
Yeah.
I was always like, oh, I do want to see it, and I was like, I guess I don't want to be disappointed.
I think the problem is it's a straightforward telling of the Dracula story with a lot of blood and stuff. So I think people went in and were upset about the copious amounts of blood.
Okay.
But I mean, it's the straightforward telling of Dracula.
Okay,
I mean,
so I'm gonna watch that then.
Yeah, I like it. I would definitely recommend checking it out. I think at the time it got an undue rap because Bram Stoker's Dracula come out before then that had Winona Ryder and Gary Oldman and Keanu Reeves and Anthony Hopkins and all that stuff and all the effects and, you know, the director and everything behind it. But then this one was a straightforward telling of the standard tropes. He's dressed like you always see Dracula dressed on TV and Hammer horror films and stuff. It's not the ornate.
I guess there was some comparisons to being as successful as Young Frankenstein as well, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was just the expectations, but it's a straightforward, fun retelling. Yeah. So I forget my point with that was.
I don't know.
I was just going to tangent about Leslie Nielsen. I just had to watch that in October, but yeah, like, so the first episode, I will continue watching it because I am interested in seeing what these different directors do and seeing, you know, what they tap into and who they bring on board and all that stuff.
Well, it's cool too that this exciting thing about the first season is it's all shot, I guess, apparently now. I would assume it's all shot, but everybody coming to it is probably their idea of the Creepshow movie. So each segment, you can see it. Now, next season, they might be like, oh, the TV show is this. I'm going to tune it towards this.
Well,
I want to kind of, you know,
I do wonder
to see
too,
everybody's personality fused into this.
Like you said, like, you know, Greg Nicotero has the attachment to the original one and that connection. But I'm wondering if some of these other people they brought in that maybe are just casual fans, if they're just bringing, here's my segment.
Yeah, which I would actually prefer.
This is disconnected.
I would actually prefer.
Because I think that because like I said, a lot of times you try to chase the dragon and, you know, try to get it to be exactly what you like about the original, you're not going to be able to. Yeah. But I think if you go in and you say, I just want to make my segment and make it entertaining and good, because the original Creepshow, it was all varying in terms of what it was about.
I'm curious to see what Tom Sweeney does, because I do like, you know, like say his Night of the Living Dead remake.
Yeah.
Love that and stuff. And a lot of that is a subversion of it. So, but Rob Schrab is another one that I'm like, okay, I'm really curious to see his horror, hopefully a horror comedy.
Because I was mostly acquainted with him from him being on Dan Harmon's podcast.
Yeah.
And then I think he directed TV and other stuff.
Yeah, like I said, I became a film of his with Scud, the Disposable Assassin in the 90s, the Sega Saturn game that was based on the comic.
Because he had shared on Instagram some stuff where him and Dan Harmon and others made like a Creepshow-esque movie or short or something years ago, and it has like their own little puppet at the intro is like the
was it Channel 101?
I think it was pre-Channel 101.
So Channel 101 is what I used to watch too, which is basically a website that was like fostering a like short internet video community. You know what I mean? Almost like making YouTube shorts before YouTube was around. Yeah, and they like weekly was it a weekly thing, right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah, I used to go on Channel 101 and Rob Schrab, I was like following them. Like I knew Rob Schrab before I'd ever even heard the word Dan Harmon. But so he did like episodes, I think Sarah Silverman program and stuff, and then Community, like you said, and he's done a bunch of stuff. I think he's really great. So I'm super excited to see his. Yeah,
I mean, like you said, you had the other people. David Bruckner had done other segments and other anthologies and did The Ritual, which I thought was entertaining.
Yeah.
Roxanne Benjamin had done a segment, and XX and Southbound. Because I was the only one that watched Southbound, right?
I think so.
Southbound was it had some of the people who worked on VHS.
Yes,
but it was cinematically shot. It wasn't found footage, and it was mostly set like in the Southwest.
Yes, I believe I did not watch that.
I thought that was a little bit better than especially VHS 3. But yeah, I mean, so they have talent involved, like writing, directing, and being in it. So I'm interested to see what they do with it. I don't think this is a knockout that it's like, oh, if you love the original Creepshow, you have to watch this.
Yeah.
I think it's more of
Let's wait and see.
If you liked Creepshow and you're into modern stuff, it's worth giving a shot. Now, like I said, you can sign up for a week and get a trial and see what you think. I think their wealth. I think with Shudder, like we're not getting paid by them. We're not getting paid by anybody. The podcast costs us money, but the element of like Shudder's overall library and everything they have, their catalog is worth subscribing to. I don't know that Creepshow alone is worth subscribing just for that, but you can definitely give it a watch and see what you think. And I'm interested to see where they go in the future. Because the first episode, the 2 segments, the second one had cool concept and I think some cool execution. The first one had cool effects. Not necessarily like a must-watch knockout, but I think it's like at least a positive start to it where I'm not worried about the show being a waste of time. It's just, well, what do they do with it? Who do they... Because even the nature of anthologies in general, you could have segments that don't connect with you that connect with others.
Yes, yeah.
And it just depends too, like what the story is, because I'm sure a lot of people that have like a family life with alcoholism might identify more with that first episode than I would. Or if somebody has a kid or something, the second episode might connect more. But
I don't think I realized that Haunt is also coming to Shudder this month. That new film from the
that people been
Quiet Place.
Yeah,
The Quiet Place. It's not supposed to be stellar, but
another movie
some people like it.
Where people go to somewhere that is supposed to be a haunted house, but then it's like, or is this for real? And are they actually killing people, or is it just an elaborate? But I think this movie says it lays to rest. There's no ambiguity, as opposed to some of these other movies there might be. It's like, is this really? Because like the house is October built. I've seen the first one. I haven't seen the sequel. It was kind of like that. That was a found footage movie. There was that one you'd asked me about, Hell House LLC.
Yeah. So they've got a third one coming out or out now too.
Yeah, the first one I thought was okay. I remember reading not so great things about the second one, which I haven't watched. Because Hell House LLC is basically they're setting up a haunted house and then creepy things start happening. And then people are like, oh, that's just someone playing a joke or whatever. And then you see where it goes, if that's true or not. But yeah, like, and luckily too, with like Creepshow, I don't think anything's found footage, shaky cam, really low budget, low rent. It's narrative storytelling from what I've seen. They may have an episode that has a found footage episode.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with found footage, but I think that if you just lean on it to make it cheap, and it's just people running around screaming and stuff, it can wear out its welcome pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, but
yeah, I feel like the type of stories that this is telling feel like Creepshow almost, but just the tone doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like the type of story fits in, but just the feel,
the
of
direction, and the music, and the set dressing, and the
like I said, there's just something about the humor. It's like the perspective from the writers and directors on this, and how they're having actors perform don't quite feel the same.
Yeah, but we'll see in the future episodes if they go in different directions or how different people do, because I'm sure that some episodes are probably high points versus others.
Overall, I liked it, but it's right over that line of like, yes, I liked it. Like, I'm not going to get a review because wait until the whole season, but overall, I liked it.
Yeah.
But it's not like close to loved it. Well, and it's not terrible.
And two, like, so if somebody is not a huge horror fan, I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, you have to go and watch this. This is for horror fans. This is for people that read Fangoria or that listen to this podcast or other podcasts and keep up with all the news and, have their Blu-ray Steelbook copy of stuff. Like, this is not for the casual. I mean, some of the stories, here's the thing, some of the individual segments could really be something that has mass appeal or could appeal to a lot of people, but the trappings of the show itself are more for people that know what Creepshow is. I don't think they're really selling this as fresh, not even like they're selling it off nostalgia for the original series. They're not selling this as it's its own new thing that doesn't require any pre-knowledge of this other prior movie. Because sometimes they do reboots, they do that.
Yeah.
Because like the Child's Play reboot, they really didn't lean on those prior movies whatsoever. Legally, they couldn't anyway. But it pretty much is like, hey, here's Chucky. That movie came and went really quickly. Which is funny because it's October and you don't hear people talking about it now, and it came out just a few months ago, and it should be on DVD and Blu-ray and all that stuff.
It wasn't that bad, but it's just forgettable.
It seemed to not have a huge footprint, but Creepshow, I'll probably continue watching it throughout the rest of the episodes. I'll be interested to see what it does, but to me it wasn't a knockout. It's just like, this isn't a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
It's just, this is obviously they don't have a ton of resources at their disposal.
I'm optimistic about the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like enough to say, okay, I want to see what else they got. You know, like they're part of the way there.
The hope would be that this does well, and then when can we be able to get them to get more resources for following seasons, and be able to up the the level and get more people.
But I mean,
to try their hand at
it. You have the Joe Bob thing, how popular that is, and the budget for that. The budget ceiling for that is so low. It doesn't need to be high.
Because that's just a dude sitting in a chair.
The return on that probably versus this is like, man, they've really got to get some good streaming numbers and subscribers for this to justify bumping up that budget.
And two, like, I'm fine with them continuing on as many seasons as they want into the future. I don't think there should be another movie.
Yeah.
With that name.
I wish they could do some deal where, even though this is part of AMC, if they could, like, maybe the next season AMC says, okay, we'll put more money behind it. We'll show it on Shudder first, and then maybe
AMC in October.
We'll put it on AMC in October the next year or something. You know what I mean?
That's a good idea.
I would like them to kind of share resources that way.
Just kind of take advantage of it. So take advantage of in October when you're showing Friday the 13th and Halloween 5
next
over
year,
and over.
Next year, show the Creepshow season, and then use that to fund season 2 of this one. You know what I mean? Just do something. Yeah,
just
that.
Like each day, seed it in between like the big movies and kind of use that to get some synergy.
Yeah.
So AMC, Shudder, call us. We will be your consultants. But yeah, so you can't review a season off of one episode. Basically, I just say,
especially anthology when it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's not a continuing story.
We don't know what we're getting for the rest of it.
Because the two segments we saw this one episode has no bearing on what's in the other ones.
Yeah.
At all. I would just say, like, I'm interested to see where it goes. It's not a disaster or anything like that. I will be interested to see where it goes, but I think that it does require being a fan of horror in general and having a little bit of tolerance for things that you may not have if this was on, HBO as part of a big series. And there's plenty of people on
Twitter that are like over the moon about it.
Yeah, but
really been positive on it. So you may be that audience that you see it and you might be over the,
But this isn't like the Tales from the Crypt where they had Joe Dante with episodes that have big name stars and multiple locations, all that stuff. This is more probably contained stories that are a little bit more focused in on the characters, things like that. But yeah, so. Like I said, I can't really give it a score, but it seems like we recommend checking it out if you're a fan of the series and horror films in general, especially if you like indie horror stuff. It seems like it's kind of in that wheelhouse. But yeah, like I said, and then I talked about the other TV stuff that's horror at the beginning.
We didn't mention Sid Haig. We mentioned it briefly on the end of that.
Yeah,
Sid Haig passed away, so big loss to the a lot of people, not just the filmmaking community. You know what I mean? Just a lot of people.
Yeah, because I went to I don't go to a ton of conventions. Yeah. It's mostly if there's something specific I'm involved with, or if it's something that's local to Louisville where you can go there and get footage and panels and stuff. But anytime I was there, he was super nice and super friendly. There's a movie that Julie was in that she actually went up and was talking to him about it because they had been in discussions with him. He was super nice and friendly and, was just chatting and, nice and calm. And he's somebody like one of the good guys at those conventions that didn't charge a lot for stuff. He charged like a reasonable price. It stayed consistent. It just seemed like somebody who enjoyed doing that. Went to a lot of those events that didn't seem to be super financially beneficial to him, but were ones where, the fans were into it. He was somebody where he had a big second wind for his career. He was kind of done. He was doing hypnotherapy when Tarantino asked him to do a couple of roles in his movie and Jackie Brown, and I think he'd offered him a role in Pulp Fiction. And then he did the Rob Zombie films, of course, that really gave him new life to his film career. And then got a lot of people to go back and check out his older stuff like Spider Baby and
all kinds of stuff,
blaxploitation films and TV and stuff he was in.
After that he was doing a lot of lower budget stuff. But what was the Western he was in with wasn't David Arquette in that?
And he was in Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk. You know what I mean? You see him pop up here and there,
so he showed up in Bone Tomahawk and some other things. So he was
I would think that was in large part due to probably Rob Zombie. You know what I mean? Rob Zombie probably.
Well, I think that it's one of those things.
He was in Jack, but I mean the character of oh my god, I can't think of his name now.
Captain Spaulding.
Yeah, Captain Spaulding. You know what I mean? Like that. That is an iconic character.
Because even if you don't like those movies, you can still recognize and have fun with the parts that Sid Haig did as Captain Spaulding. Because he was very more over the top and fun in like House of a Thousand Corpses, like the commercials and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he had some very iconic lines in Devil's Rejects. He's just a fun, fun actor. It would have been nice if he had gotten more cracks at roles, and because like imagine somebody with like his timing and personality and some of these like darker comedies that Vice Principals or something.
Yeah.
Some of those darker comedies, but so he's a huge loss because he was seemed to be just generally a nice guy. Like I said, wasn't gouging people, just doing it because he wanted to. Had this career that spanned, however many movies and shows, went and got a normal 9-to-5 job, or got a 9-to-5 job or career, and then got back into film because, like Tarantino and Rob Zombie, who are these huge fans of these old exploitation and drive-in movies and TV, liked him enough to use him in his projects, and it really just put him back on the map and made him be somebody that people are aware of. So, very sad that he's gone. Because I'm sure if you go to any of the conventions, he was a staple at all.
Yeah,
he was
always there. I don't know how many I've been at to see him, and I'd mainly stay local too, or go, indie or Lexington or something. But I don't know how many times I've saw him.
Yeah, so just sad that he's gone. He's gonna be very missed. 3 from Hell just came out, and I think that his role in that wasn't all that huge because of his health concerns.
We got the panel up with
Bill Moseley and Clint Howard.
Yeah, and they said basically, I guess it wasn't that, or did I hear it someplace else? Or was I reading it someplace else? Where, basically they had the role. I think I was reading it somewhere. It was Rob Zombie. He was talking about it. He had the role written for Sid. The health stuff happened, and right like a couple of days before they were shooting.
They rewrote it to Robert Brake.
Yeah,
to take
and then
over.
So thankfully they had him in there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, imagine having to do that. You know what I mean? With that, with like this, that's kind of Captain Spaulding's kind of the poster character. Like it is both all 3 of them. Yeah. But he is like. That face is the one that you're going to be selling masks.
It's on shirts.
You know what I mean? Like
figures.
It's like it's almost like losing Michael Myers in some regards.
Because Bill Moseley's great, and
Bill Moseley is stellar in that. I think. I mean, I think all 3 of them are.
But it's just like the Captain Spaulding character is the iconic one.
That's someone you can sell as a figurine.
A figure, a shirt, poster, whatever. Yeah, so like I said, I didn't know him personally. I'd only briefly met him at some of his conventions, but seemed like a great person. Very, big loss for the horror community because there's not a lot of people around like that. I mean, will people who are in stuff now, 30 years from now, be doing these conventions and that stuff? Who knows? But yeah, and we'll do 3 from Hell whenever it gets a general release because we didn't get a chance to do the Fathom event.
Insanely busy. I really wanted to. I wanted to go to see the behind the scenes stuff.
And 2 is just personally I don't feel like I'm predisposed to be a huge fan of Rob Zombie's later day work. And I've heard it's a lot of, people have said generally it's more of the same. So if you loved 31 and all that stuff, you'll like this one. So it's like, well, I don't want to go and make a big deal and then come out with a negative review. Like, I'm going to review it how I review it. It's just, what's funny is too, because everybody, that panel you posted got some decent views and people were finding it. And it's a lot of people who are just really big Rob Zombie fans. So if they go back and listen to any of our like podcast reviews of stuff, they'll probably hate me or watch our Thanksgiving dinner thing. But that was like a send up of like, oh, this is taking the enjoyable elements and just ramping it up.
I'm really want to see that movie. I'm really curious to see how it turned out. We got budget limitations and stuff, but I've heard some people say it's more, I don't know, they almost acted like it was more mature in some regards. I don't, I've seen all kinds of different reports, so I'm very curious to see it for myself.
I think what I've heard is that in lieu of some of the budget, they just amped up the nudity to keep you interested. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so, it's a very sad loss. So, there weren't a lot of people out there like Sid Haig, so it'll be interesting to see if anybody tries to fill that gap at these conventions. Because I'm sure Bill Moseley, he was there at every convention right next to him, and they hung out all the time. So I'm sure that it's devastating for the people that hang out with them all the time. So it's very sad. We lost a lot of the icons. Because the tall man Angus Scrimm. I mean, all these different people that passed. Like whenever it gets to like John Carpenter, like Wes Craven's gone. John Carpenter has all the conventions, but there's all these icons that when you like, please don't go away. But yeah, so but that wraps up our discussion about Creepshow and everything. You can find all the stuff we're doing at hbtvs.com. You don't have to spell out the website anymore. We got the link. There's you can also go to hbtvs.store to check out our merch section. You can also find it from the main site. We have t-shirts and hoodies and stuff on sale. They come in different colors and things like that, so you can check that out because Chad set that up, so that's very cool. You can find all the work we're doing at the website. You can find links to all of our social media accounts at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff. And if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Instagram at the William Caps.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the House of VSR podcast. Thanks for listening.